The doors of the Grand Judgment Hall weighed more than most starships. They were made from compressed stellar matter, forged in the heart of a dying sun. And they had not opened for an uninvited species in over 3,000 years. Today, they opened for humanity. Admiral Victor Kane walked through those massive doors with 6 humans behind him. His boots echoed against the crystal floor as 17,000 alien representatives watched from their hovering platforms above. The chamber stretched upward for nearly a kilometer. A cathedral of judgment built to make any species feel small and insignificant. It was working. Kane kept his face neutral as he studied the beings around him. There were creatures of living light, entities made of crystalline structures, massive gaseous forms contained in atmospheric bubbles, and things that his human brain could not properly process. These were the rulers of the Orion Arm, the species that had controlled galactic civilization for millions of years, and they had summoned humanity to answer for its crimes. At the center of the chamber, floating above a platform of pure energy, was the supreme arbiter. The being called itself the Valdrix, and it had judged civilizations since before Earth's dinosaurs went extinct. Its body was a swirling mass of dark matter and starlight, constantly shifting, impossible to look at directly without feeling dizzy. "The Terran delegation will approach," the Valdrix announced. Its voice did not come from any single point. It simply existed in the air, in the walls, in the minds of everyone present. Kane walked forward. Behind him came Captain Maya Torres, Commander David Okonjo, Dr. Elias Brennan, Ambassador Rachel Stone, and 2 security officers whose names were classified even from him. They were the only humans in a chamber filled with millions of aliens. They had never felt more alone. "Humanity of Earth," the Valdrix spoke, and the entire chamber fell silent. "You stand accused of crimes against galactic peace. The charges are as follows." A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. Earth, blue and green and beautiful, rotating slowly in the void. First, the unauthorized development of faster-than-light travel, achieved without proper licensing from the Galactic Council. The image shifted to show human starships, crude by galactic standards but functional, spreading across the stars. Second, the weaponization of biological agents native to your death world, used against the Harvester Collective during the Kepler incident. Now the hologram showed something terrible: wreckage, destroyed ships, the remains of a fleet that had been torn apart with savage efficiency. Third, and most severely, the complete annihilation of the Mordith Expeditionary Force. 800 vessels, 12 million crew members, destroyed in a single engagement. Kane watched the images without expression. He remembered that battle. He had commanded it. "The evidence against your species is overwhelming," the Valdrix continued. "Before this tribunal passes judgment, you are permitted to speak in your defense. Choose your words carefully, Admiral Kane. They may be the last words your species ever speaks to the galaxy." The chamber waited. 17,000 representatives leaned forward in their platforms. Some hoped for mercy. Most expected execution. A few were already calculating how to divide Earth's resources among themselves. Kane took a single step forward. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady, amplified by the chamber systems to reach every corner of the vast space. 47 years ago, Earth received a signal from deep space. He paused, letting the words settle. It was a distress call. Someone was dying, and they were begging for help. The signal came from a species called the Valhari, who were being hunted by something they called the Harvesters, machine intelligences that consumed organic life for fuel. The hologram shifted again, now showing a peaceful world being systematically stripped of life. The Valhari sent their distress call to everyone. Every species in this chamber received it. Every civilization with the technology to help heard their screams. Kane looked around at the assembled representatives. No one answered. No one came. The Valhari were deemed too far away, too insignificant, too costly to save. Your civilizations calculated the risks and decided that 12 billion innocent lives were not worth the trouble. His voice hardened. Humanity answered. We had barely discovered faster-than-light travel. Our ships were held together with prayers and determination. We had no weapons capable of fighting the harvesters, no technology that could match their power. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We went anyway. And when we arrived, we found the harvesters waiting. They had already destroyed the Valhari fleet. They were already beginning their harvest. Our ships were outgunned, outmatched, and completely unprepared. The hologram now showed a battle. Human vessels, tiny compared to the massive harvester constructs, fighting with desperate courage. We lost 60% of our fleet in the first hour. Our weapons barely scratched their hulls. Our shields failed within minutes. By every reasonable calculation, we should have retreated. We should have run. Kane shook his head. We did not run. We adapted. We learned. And we found ways to hurt them that they never expected. The images showed human ships ramming into harvester vessels. Crews manually piloting their reactor cores into enemy weapon systems. Escape pods converted into guided missiles. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, humanity had lost 80% of our force. 4,000 brave men and women dead. But the harvesters were destroyed. Every single one of them. And the Valhari survived. Kane turned to face the Valdrix directly. That is what humanity does, Supreme Arbiter. We answer distress calls. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We sacrifice everything for people we have never met. He gestured at the hologram of the destroyed Mordith fleet. The Mordith came to our space with 800 warships. They were not there to negotiate. They were not there to enforce quarantine. They attacked a civilian transport carrying colonists to our settlement on New Geneva. They killed 1,700 people, including 200 children, before we even knew they were there. His voice rose. So yes, we destroyed them. Every ship, every weapon platform, every piece of their fleet that could threaten our people. We did not do it with joy. We did not do it without cost. But we did it because that is who we are. The chamber was utterly silent. You want to know why humanity is dangerous? It is not our weapons. It is not our technology. It is something your species have forgotten how to feel. He looked around at the assembled representatives, meeting eyes and sensors and perception organs of every kind. We care. We care so deeply about protecting our own that we will burn ourselves to ash before we let them be harmed. And when someone threatens the people we love, we do not stop. We do not negotiate. We do not forgive. He turned back to the Valdrix. So here is my defense, Supreme Arbiter. We are guilty. Guilty of answering calls for help. Guilty of fighting for the innocent. Guilty of refusing to stand by while evil consumes the weak. He straightened his uniform. If that makes us criminals in the eyes of this council, then pass your judgment. But know this. Whatever you decide here today, humanity will not change. We will continue to answer distress calls. We will continue to fight for those who need us. And we will continue to be exactly what this galaxy needs, whether it wants us or not. The Valdrix was silent for a long moment. Then it spoke, its voice carrying a weight that made the very air tremble. Admiral Kane, this tribunal does not exist to debate philosophy. It exists to protect the galaxy from threats. And humanity, by every measure we possess, is the most dangerous threat this council has ever encountered. Perhaps, Kane replied. But in 3 hours, you are going to understand exactly why that danger exists. Before the Valdrix could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Warning lights flashed across every platform. Representatives scrambled for information, their communication devices flooding with urgent reports. Ambassador Stone spoke for the first time, her voice calm despite the chaos. Right on schedule. The Valdrix's form crackled with energy. What have you done? Kane allowed himself the smallest of smiles. We received another distress call, Supreme Arbiter. 3 days ago. From a species you abandoned to die, just like you abandoned the Velhari. The Luminari of the Cygnus Reach are under attack. The Harvesters have returned, and they have built something new. Something terrible. He watched the Valdrix process this information. The Deathworlder fleet launched 48 hours ago. 3,000 ships. Every combat-capable vessel humanity possesses. They will reach the Luminary homeworld in approximately 6 hours. The chamber erupted in chaos. But Kane simply stood there, waiting, while behind him the 6 other humans assumed positions that looked almost casual. This was not a trial anymore. This was a demonstration, and it was only beginning. The alarms continued to scream through the Grand Judgment Hall as chaos consumed the Galactic Council. Representatives shouted in languages that human translators struggled to process. Diplomatic protocols that had maintained order for millennia crumbled in moments. Admiral Kane stood motionless at the center of it all, watching the Valdrix with patient eyes. "Explain yourself," the Supreme Arbiter demanded, its form flickering with barely contained energy. "You claim the Harvesters have returned. Our sensors have detected no such threat." "Your sensors are looking in the wrong places." Dr. Brennan stepped forward, activating a small device that projected a hologram into the chamber's display system. The Luminari sent their distress call through quantum-entangled particles, not standard communications. Your monitoring systems are not designed to detect such signals. The hologram showed a star map of the Cygnus Reach, a region of space considered too remote for most civilizations to bother with. At its center, a pulsing red marker indicated the Luminari homeworld. 6 days ago, the Luminari detected unusual gravitational signatures at the edge of their system, Brennan continued. When they investigated, they found this. The image shifted, and the chamber fell silent. It was massive. A construct larger than any space station, any orbital platform, any artificial structure in recorded history. The thing was roughly spherical, nearly the size of a small moon, its surface covered with machinery that pulsed with sickly green light. Tendrils of energy extended from its core, reaching toward the Luminary sun like fingers grasping for food. "The Luminari call it the Devourer," Renan said quietly. "It is not simply a weapon. It is a consumption engine designed to drain stellar energy and convert it into fuel for Harvester expansion. Based on our analysis, once it finishes feeding on their sun, the Luminary system will be completely lifeless within 72 hours. A representative from the species Kane did not recognize spoke up, its voice translated as clicks and whistles. "How can you be certain this is Harvester technology?" "The Harvesters were destroyed decades ago." "We destroyed their fleet," Kane replied. "We did not destroy their home. The Harvesters are not a species. They are a system, a machine intelligence that has existed for hundreds of thousands of years. What we fought at Valari was merely an expeditionary force." He let that sink in. "They have spent the last 40 years studying us, learning from their defeat. And now they have returned with something designed specifically to counter everything they know about how we fight." The Valdrix processed this information, its form, shifting through colors that had no names in human languages. "If what you say is true, Admiral, then why are you here? Why bring this information to a tribunal that was prepared to execute your species?" "Because this is not just a threat to the Luminari," Ambassador Stone answered. "The Devourer is a prototype. Our intelligence suggests the Harvesters have constructed at least 7 more, positioned throughout the Orion Arm. One of them is currently en route to this station. The chamber exploded into renewed panic. Representatives who had been demanding humanity's execution moments ago were now screaming for protection, for evacuation, for someone to do something. Kane raised his hand, and somehow, impossibly, the gesture commanded attention. "We did not come here to ask for help," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "We came here to give you a chance to participate. The Deathworlder fleet is already moving. Our people are ready prepared to die for strangers they have never met. That is what we do." He looked around at the assembled species. "But this threat is too large for humanity alone. The Harvesters have had 40 years to prepare. They know our tactics, our weapons, our willingness to sacrifice. They have built countermeasures for everything we might throw at them." His expression hardened. "So here is your choice galaxy. You can continue to hide behind your treaties and your protocols and your calculated risks. You can watch while humanity burns itself out, trying to save everyone. Or you can remember what it means to fight for something greater than yourself." The Valdrix was silent for a long moment. Then it spoke, its voice carrying across the chamber with ancient authority. "The Council requires time to deliberate." "The Luminari do not have time," Kane replied. "Neither does anyone else." Captain Torres stepped forward, holding a data tablet. "Admiral, the fleet has made contact with the Devourer's defensive perimeter. They are engaging now." She activated. The tablet in the chamber's main display shifted to show a live tactical feed. Human warships, thousands of them, spreading across space in formations that looked almost artistic. At their center, the flagship Relentless led the assault, its massive hull scarred from dozens of previous battles. And facing them, emerging from the shadow of the Devourer, came the Harvester fleet. There were thousands of them, vessels of every size, from fighters smaller than human shuttles to dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in the Council's combined navies. They moved with perfect synchronization, a swarm of death advancing toward the human formation. "Admiral Helena Voss is in command," Torres reported. "She sends her regards and requests that we try not to get executed before she finishes saving the galaxy." Despite everything, Kane almost smiled. Voss had been his student decades ago. She had surpassed him in every way that mattered. The battle began. Human ships surged forward, their weapons lighting up the void with devastating fire. Harvester vessels exploded, their machine bodies torn apart by weapons that had been refined through decades of conflict. But for every enemy destroyed, 3 more took its place. "They are adapting," the Valdrix observed, watching the tactical display with what might have been concern. "Their formation is designed to absorb casualties while protecting the Devourer." "We know," Kane replied. "So is ours." The human fleet shifted, reorganizing with practiced precision. Carrier groups launched thousands of strike craft, creating a swarm of their own to match the Harvester numbers. Cruiser squadrons formed defensive screens around the larger vessels. And at the front, the assault divisions began their charge. What happened next was something the Council had never witnessed. Human ships did not fight like other species. They did not maintain safe distances. They did not preserve their forces for future engagements. They threw themselves at the enemy with an aggression that bordered on madness. Strike craft dove into Harvester formations, detonating their reactor cores to create gaps in enemy lines. Cruisers rammed into larger vessels, their crews evacuating. At the last moment, while their ships tore through enemy hulls, destroyers used themselves as shields, absorbing fire meant for more valuable targets. "Casualties are mounting," Torres reported, her voice tight. "We have lost 400 ships in the first engagement. Enemy losses are estimated at 1,200. "Continue the assault," Kane said, though the words tasted like ash. A representative from a species called the Velthari spoke up. Kane recognized them. They were the people humanity had saved 47 years ago. Their bodies glowed with soft blue light, and their voice carried deep emotion. Admiral Kane, my people have watched this battle with growing horror. Your species is destroying itself to protect the Luminari, just as you destroyed yourselves to protect us. That is correct, but why? The Luminari are strangers to you. They have nothing to offer. They cannot repay this sacrifice. Kane turned to face the Velthari representative directly. 47 years ago, when your people sent their distress call, how many species answered? The Velthari's glow dimmed. None, until humanity came? And since then, has any species in this chamber done anything to help others without calculating the cost first? Silence. We did not save your people because we expected repayment. We saved them because they needed saving. That is the only reason humanity needs. He gestured at the tactical display, where human ships continued to die by the dozens. Every person in that fleet knew the risks. They volunteered anyway, because somewhere out there, billions of Luminari are waiting to see if the universe still contains species willing to fight for them. The Velthari representative was silent for a moment. Then it spoke, its light beginning to pulse with something new. The Velthari sovereignty commits its remaining military forces to the defense of the Luminari, all 47 vessels. We may not survive, but we will not stand idle while those who saved us fight alone. Kane nodded, a gesture of respect that transcended species. Another representative spoke up. Then another. Species that had been content to watch began offering support. Ships began launching from stations throughout the sector, converging on the distant battle. The Valdrix watched this unfold with something that might have been wonder. Admiral Kane, in 11,000 years of moderating galactic affairs, I have never witnessed anything like this. You came here facing execution, and you have somehow turned your trial into a rallying cry. I did not turn anything, Kane replied. I simply reminded the galaxy what it has forgotten. There are things worth fighting for. There are people worth dying for. And sometimes, the right thing to do is not the safe thing. The tactical display updated. The human fleet had punched through the outer defensive ring. They were approaching the Devourer itself, but the construct was not passive. Energy weapons, larger than most starships, began firing from its surface. Each blast eliminated multiple human vessels instantly. Admiral, Torres said quietly, Admiral Voss is requesting permission to begin Operation Terminus. Kane closed his eyes. He knew what that meant. He had helped design it. Permission granted. Torres transmitted the order, and on the tactical display, something changed. The flagship Relentless, along with 17 other capital ships, broke formation. They accelerated directly toward the Devourer, ignoring the weapons fire that tore into their hulls, ignoring the swarms of Harvester fighters trying to stop them. They were not trying to survive. They were trying to create an opening. What are they doing? The Valdrix demanded. They are doing what humanity has always done, Kane said, watching his people die with pride and grief and something that felt like hope. They are burning so that others may live. One by one, the capital ships reached the Devourer's surface. One by one, they detonated. The explosions tore holes in the construct's outer shell, exposing the machinery beneath. And through those gaps, the rest of the human fleet poured, carrying weapons and boarding parties and the desperate determination of a species that refused to accept defeat. Battle for the Devourer had begun, and the galaxy was finally watching. The interior of the Devourer was a nightmare given form. Corridors twisted in directions that made human minds ache. Walls pulsed with energy that felt alive, hungry, aware. The air itself seemed to resist their presence, thick with particles that clogged filters and burned exposed skin. Colonel Marcus Webb led the first boarding party through the breach created by the Relentless. His team consisted of 200 Marines in heavy combat armor, each carrying enough firepower to level a small city. Behind them came engineers, demolition experts, and specialists whose skills were classified even from military command. They had trained for this moment for 17 years. None of them expected to survive it. "Contact front," Sergeant Nina Okonjo called out, her weapon already firing. Harvester drones emerged from the walls themselves, their metal bodies unfolding like insects from a hive. They were different from the ones humanity had faced before. Faster, smarter, adapted, the Marines opened fire with synchronized precision. Drones fell by the dozens, their broken forms clattering against the strange floor. But more kept coming, an endless tide of metal and malice. "Push forward," Webb ordered. "We stop moving, we die." They advanced through the corridor, leaving a trail of destroyed machines behind them. The walls began to close in around them, the Devourer actively trying to crush the invaders. Webb detonated shaped charges, blasting new passages through the shifting architecture. "Colonel, I am reading massive energy signatures ahead," Dr. Amara Nosu reported, her scanner cutting through the interference with difficulty. "The core of this structure is approximately 2 kilometers in that direction. But there is something else. Something biological." "Biological?" "The harvesters are machines. These readings suggest otherwise. There is organic matter at the center of this construct. A lot of it." Webb processed this information while directing fire at another wave of drones. The harvesters had always been described as pure machine intelligence, evolved from some ancient species that had transcended flesh millennia ago. If there was something living inside this thing, it changed everything. "Continue toward the core. Whatever is in there, we need to reach it." They fought their way deeper into the Devourer. The resistance intensified with every meter. Drones became larger, more heavily armed. The corridors became traps, designed to funnel intruders into kill zones. Marines fell, their armor breached, their bodies consumed by the hungry walls. Webb watched his force dwindle. 200 became 150, then 100, then 70. "Colonel," Okonjo said quietly, "we may not have enough personnel to complete the mission." "We have enough," Webb replied, though he did not believe it. "We always have enough." Far above, in the chaos of the space battle, Admiral Voss commanded the fleet from the bridge of the assault carrier Vengeance. The Relentless was gone, sacrificed to create the breach. 17 other capital ships had followed it into oblivion. The cost was staggering, but the opening remained. "Status report," Voss demanded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "We have 8 boarding parties inside the Devourer," Commander Paulo Reyes reported. "Colonel Webb's team is making the most progress. The others are encountering heavy resistance." "Enemy fleet status?" "Reduced to approximately 60% effectiveness. They are pulling back to defend the construct directly." "Admiral, if we concentrate our fire on the remaining capital ships." "Negative. Our primary objective is the Devourer. Keep the harvesters busy. Give Webb the time he needs." The battle continued, a dance of destruction that spanned thousands of kilometers. Human ships weaved through harvester formations, striking weak points, creating diversions. The Allied vessels that had answered humanity's call joined the assault, their unfamiliar weapons adding new chaos to the conflict. The Velthary ships fought with desperate courage, their crews singing ancient songs of defiance as they charged into enemy lines. They had waited 47 years to repay the debt they owed humanity. Today, they would pay it in full dot in the Grand Judgment Hall. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. Admiral Kane stood motionless, his eyes tracking every movement on the tactical display. Behind him, his delegation had taken up positions around the chamber. monitoring communications, coordinating with the fleet, managing a war from the heart of enemy territory. "Admiral," Ambassador Stone said quietly, "we are receiving reports from the boarding parties. Colonel Webb has reached something significant." Kane nodded. "Show me." The display shifted to show Webb's helmet camera feed. The colonel was standing at the entrance to a vast chamber, larger than anything that should exist inside even a structure this size. The space stretched for kilometers in every direction, filled with machinery that pulsed with that familiar sickly light. And at its center was the source dot. It was enormous. A mass of organic tissue interwoven with technology, suspended in the center of the chamber by thousands of cables and conduits. It looked like a brain, if a brain could be the size of a mountain. It pulsed with life, each beat sending ripples of energy through the entire structure. "What am I looking at?" Webb asked, his voice transmitted to both the fleet and the council chamber. Dr. Nwosu stepped forward, her scanner working overtime. "Colonel, this is the Harvester's central intelligence. The original. Every Harvester machine in existence is connected to this entity. It is not just controlling the Devourer. It is the Devourer. Can we destroy it? If we can deliver enough explosive force directly to its core, yes. But Colonel, there is something else. I am detecting human DNA signatures within the organic mass." Webb felt cold settle into his bones. "Explain." The Harvesters have been collecting organic material from every species they encounter. They do not simply consume it. They integrate it. This entity contains biological components from thousands of different species, including humans. It has been studying us, Colonel, learning from our genetic code, adapting. The chamber in the Grand Judgment Hall erupted with horrified murmurs. Species that had considered themselves safe, protected by distance and technology, now understood the truth. The Harvesters had been harvesting more than just fuel. They had been building something. The massive brain pulsed and a voice emerged. It did not come from any speaker or transmission. It simply existed, present in the minds of everyone who heard it. "Little fire creatures, you have found me." Webb raised his weapon, though he knew it was useless against something this vast. "What are you?" "I am the culmination, the end point of all organic evolution. For 300,000 years, I have collected the genetic heritage of every species I have encountered. I have absorbed their strengths, eliminated their weaknesses, become something greater than any single form of life could achieve." The voice carried no emotion. It was simply stating facts. "Your species interested me particularly. So fragile, so short-lived, yet so remarkably aggressive. When my children encountered you at Velari, I expected easy victory. Instead, I received my first defeat in 100,000 years. The mass pulsed again, and the chamber seemed to breathe. I have studied you since then, learned from your genetic code, adapted your aggression, your determination, your willingness to sacrifice. The Devourer was designed specifically to counter everything that makes humanity dangerous." Webb looked at his remaining Marines. 43 of them, wounded, exhausted, facing something beyond comprehension. "If you have learned so much about us," he said slowly, "then you know what we are about to do. You will attempt to destroy me. You will fail. Your weapons cannot penetrate my core. Your numbers are insufficient. Your fleet is being systematically eliminated. There is no outcome in which you achieve victory." Webb smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You learned our aggression. You learned our determination. But you missed the most important thing about humanity." He reached for his belt, where a small device was attached. Every Marine in his team carried an identical one. "You missed the fact that we do not fight to win. We fight because fighting is right. We fight because somewhere out there, People are depending on us. We fight because we would rather die standing than live kneeling. He activated the device. And when we cannot win, we make sure the enemy loses too, throughout the Devourer. In every section where human boarding parties had penetrated, Marines activated their devices. Nuclear charges, antimatter containers, plasma cores, all synchronized to detonate simultaneously. They had known from the beginning that this might be necessary. They had volunteered anyway, docked in the Grand Judgment Hall. Kane watched the tactical display with tears he did not bother to hide. "Colonel Webb," he said softly, "on behalf of Earth and all humanity, thank you." Webb's voice came through the channel one final time. "Just make sure the galaxy remembers why we did this, Admiral. Make sure they know that when the darkness came, humanity answered." The channel went silent. 3 seconds later, the interior of the Devourer became a small sun. The explosion tore through the construct from within, shattering systems that had functioned for hundreds of thousands of years. The Central Intelligence screamed, a sound that echoed through the minds of every being in the sector, as its ancient body was consumed by fire. But it was not dead. Not yet. The outer shell of the Devourer remained intact, damaged but functional. The intelligence had contingencies, backups, ways to survive even catastrophic damage. It began to regenerate, pulling energy from the luminary sun, attempting to rebuild itself before the human fleet could take advantage of its weakness. Admiral Voss saw the readings and understood. Webb had bought them time, but not victory. She opened a channel to every remaining human ship. "All vessels, this is Admiral Voss. The boarding parties have created a window. The enemy is wounded, but not dead. We need to finish this now." She took a breath. "I am ordering all ships to converge on the Devourer. Maximum firepower. Do not hold anything back. This ends today, one way or another." The human fleet, reduced to less than half its original strength, turned toward the wounded construct. They had one chance. They would not waste it. Devourer hung in space like a wounded god, its surface torn open by the internal explosions. Energy leaked from 1,000 breaches, and for the first time in 300,000 years, the culmination felt something it had never experienced before. Fear. Morale. Helene Voss stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching her fleet converge on the damaged construct. They had started with 3,000 ships. Fewer than 1,100 remained. The space around them was filled with debris, both human and harvester, a graveyard of steel and sacrifice that stretched for thousands of kilometers. "All weapons online," Commander Reyes reported. "The fleet is in position. Status of the enemy? The harvester fleet is in disarray. With their central intelligence damaged, they have lost coordination. Many vessels are simply drifting. Others are attempting to form defensive positions around the Devourer." Voss nodded. The boarding parties had done their job. Colonel Webb and his Marines had given them this chance. Now she had to make it count. Open fire. Everything we have. Do not stop until that thing is dead. The human fleet unleashed devastation. Missiles streaked through the void by the thousands. Energy weapons carved burning lines across the Devourer's surface. Kinetic projectiles, accelerated to impossible speeds, punched through weakened armor and tore into the machinery beneath. The Allied vessels joined the assault. Valkyrie ships poured crystalline fire into the breaches. Nixathi energy beings merged their forms into living weapons, projecting destruction that nothing could withstand. Even the ancient Valdrix, watching from the distant council station, contributed something nobody expected, a beam of pure judgment, focused through technologies older than most civilizations, lanced across space and struck the Devourer directly in its wounded core dot in the Grand Judgment Hall. Admiral Kane watched the Supreme Arbiter unleash power it had not used in 10,000 Years. I thought the Council did not interfere in conflicts. He said, "The Council does not," the Valdix replied. Its form flickering with the effort of projecting such force across such distance. But I am older than the Council, and I have decided that some things are worth fighting for after all. Kane almost smiled. Welcome to the war. Inside the Devourer, the culmination struggled to survive. Its regeneration systems were working at maximum capacity, but the damage was too extensive, the attacks too relentless. For every breach it sealed, 3 more opened, and something else was happening. Something it had not anticipated. The human DNA it had integrated, the genetic material it had absorbed to make itself stronger, was fighting back. The aggressive survival instincts encoded in human cells were activating, treating the culmination's own body as a threat. Its stolen humanity was turning against it. No, the entity broadcast, its voice weaker now, filled with something that sounded almost like desperation. This is impossible. I am the culmination of 300,000 years of evolution. I am perfect. I am eternal. Admiral Voss heard the transmission and felt grim satisfaction. You stole our DNA, she said, broadcasting on all frequencies. You thought it would make you stronger, but you did not understand what you were taking. She watched another section of the Devourer collapse under concentrated fire. Humanity did not evolve to conquer. We evolved to survive. On a world that tried to kill us every single day. Through ice ages and extinctions and disasters that should have ended us 100 times over. We are not built for domination. We are built for one thing. The fleet fired another volley. We are built to endure, to fight, to never, ever give up, no matter how impossible the odds. You took that into yourself, and now you're discovering what it means to fight against something that refuses to die. The culmination screamed. The sound echoed through space itself, a cry of rage and fear in something that might have been understanding. It had collected billions of years of genetic heritage. It had absorbed the strongest, traits of thousands of species, but it had never encountered anything like humanity. On the Vengeance, Reyes looked up from his console with urgent concern. Admiral, the Devourer is attempting to activate its primary weapon. If it manages to fire on the luminary sun, it will complete its harvest and have enough energy to regenerate. Voss finished. How long do we have? 4 minutes, maybe less. Voss looked at the tactical display. The Devourer was too large, too heavily armored, even in its damaged state. They were hurting it, but not fast enough. We need to get inside, she said. Find whatever remains of its core and destroy it directly. Admiral, the internal structure is still heavily defended. Any ship that enters will be destroyed. Not any ship. Voss turned to face her bridge crew. The Vengeance can survive long enough. If we accelerate to maximum speed and use our mass as a weapon, ... You are talking about ramming the Devourer. I am talking about finishing what Colonel Webb started. Silence fell over the bridge. Everyone understood what she was proposing. Everyone knew there was no other option. Commander Reyes spoke first. Admiral, I respectfully request to remain at my post. Paulo, my family's on New Geneva. If this thing survives, they die. I would rather die stopping it than live knowing I could have done more. One by one, the bridge crew echoed his sentiment. Nobody requested evacuation. Nobody asked to transfer to another vessel. Voss felt pride swelling in her chest, mixed with grief for what she was about to order. Very well. Helm, set course for the Devourer's core. All ahead full. The Vengeance broke formation, accelerating toward the wounded construct. Harvester drones swarmed to intercept, but the Allied fleet cleared a path, sacrificing ships to protect the charging carrier. 30 seconds to impact, Reyes reported. The Devourer's weapons opened fire on the approaching vessel. Shields failed. Hull breaches opened. Fires spread through multiple decks. But the vengeance did not stop. 20 seconds. In the Grand Judgment Hall, Admiral Kane watched the flagship he had once commanded race toward its destruction. He wanted to speak, to say something meaningful, but words seemed inadequate. Ambassador Stone placed a hand on his shoulder. "They know, Admiral. They know." 10 seconds. Voss stood at the center of her bridge, surrounded by people who had chosen to die beside her. She thought of everyone who had brought them to this moment. The crews of the Relentless and the 17 other ships that had created the first breach. Colonel Webb and his Marines. The Velthari and Nixathi, and all the others who had finally remembered what courage meant. 5 seconds. She thought of Earth, of humanity, of a species that had looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone was out. There. 3. They had found their answer. 2. And they had become the answer themselves. 1. The vengeance struck the Devourer at over 300 kilometers per second. The impact was visible from light minutes away, a flash of destruction that outshone stars. The carrier's reactor core, pushed beyond all safety limits, detonated at the moment of impact, releasing enough energy to crack planets. The explosion tore through the Devourer's already damaged structure, racing toward its core with unstoppable force. Machinery that had functioned for hundreds of thousands of years was vaporized instantly. Backup systems failed. Regeneration networks collapsed, and at the center of it all, the culmination felt its consciousness begin to fragment. "Impossible," it whispered, its voice fading to nothing. "You are just animals. Fragile. Temporary. How could you ... It never finished the sentence. The secondary explosions reached the organic core, the ancient brain that had guided the harvesters for 300 millennia. The human DNA within it, the stolen heritage of a species that never stopped fighting. Activated one final time. It did not resist destruction. It embraced it. The Devourer died in fire and light, its massive form breaking apart, its systems going dark, its endless hunger finally permanently satisfied. In the space where it had been, there was nothing but debris and silence. The battle was over. In the Grand Judgment Hall, the silence stretched for a long moment. Then the Luminari representative, a being of silver light that had been watching with growing hope, began to glow with blinding intensity. "The Devourer is destroyed. Our sun is safe. Our people will survive." The glow spread, pulsing with emotion that transcended species. "Humanity has saved us, just as they saved the Velthari, just as they would save anyone who called for help." The representative turned to face Admiral Kane. "We have a word in our language, Admiral. A concept we thought was merely mythology until today. We call it Vithanura. It means those who become fire to light the way for others." Kane nodded slowly. "Thank you." "No, Admiral. Thank you. Thank your people. And remember that from this day forward, the Luminari stand with humanity. Whatever comes next, you will not face it alone." Similar declarations came from other representatives. The Velthari renewed their pledge of eternal alliance. The Nixathi offered technologies they had kept secret for millennia. Even species that had been preparing to vote for humanity's execution now spoke of partnership, cooperation, friendship. The Valdrix watched it all with ancient eyes. "Admiral Kane," it said finally, "this tribunal is convened to determine whether humanity represents a threat to galactic peace." Kane met the entity's gaze without flinching. "And your conclusion?" "My conclusion is that the question itself was wrong. Humanity is indeed dangerous, more dangerous than any species this council has ever encountered. But danger, I have learned today, is not the same as threat." The Valdrix's form shifted, becoming somehow warmer, more welcoming. "Humanity is dangerous because you care too much. You feel too deeply. You are willing to sacrifice everything for principles that other species have forgotten how to understand. This makes you terrifying. It also makes you exactly what this galaxy needs. Kane allowed himself to breathe. So we are not condemned? Condemned? No, Admiral. You are welcomed. All charges against humanity are dismissed. Furthermore, the Council offers Earth full membership, with all rights and responsibilities thereto. The chamber erupted in sounds of approval from dozens of species. But Kane did not celebrate. He was thinking of Helena Voss, still out there in the debris field. Her ship was destroyed. Her crew was gone. But maybe, just maybe, some of them had survived. Supreme Arbiter, he said, I respectfully request permission to return to the fleet. There may be survivors who need rescue. The Valdrix nodded. Permission granted, Admiral. And Admiral? Yes? Hurry. Your people have given enough. It is time for the galaxy to start giving back. The rescue operations lasted for 72 hours. Ships from dozens of species combed through the debris field, searching for survivors, recovering bodies, documenting the destruction. The wreckage of the Devourer spread across millions of kilometers, mixed with the remains of human vessels, harvester machines, and the ships of every ally that had joined the fight. Admiral Kane commanded the search from the bridge of a borrowed Velthary cruiser. He had not slept since the battle ended. He could not sleep, not while his people were still out there. Admiral, Captain Torres reported, her voice rough with exhaustion, we have recovered another escape pod. 3 survivors. They are from the Vengeance. Kane felt his heart stop. Admiral Voss? Negative, sir. Engineering crew. They say the Admiral ordered all non-essential personnel to evacuate in the final moments. She stayed at the helm. Kane nodded slowly. He had expected as much. Helena Voss was not the type to abandon her post. She had ridden the Vengeance into the heart of the enemy, and she had died ensuring the kill was complete. She had died exactly as she would have wanted. Continue the search, he ordered. Leave no debris field unchecked. Every survivor we bring home is a victory. The search continued. By the end of the 3rd day, they had recovered over 17,000 survivors from the human fleet. It was a small number compared to the losses. 41,000 had died, almost 2/3 of everyone who had deployed, but 17,000 was not nothing. 17,000 people who would go home, who would see their families again, who would tell the story of what happened here, not 17,000 witnesses to humanity's greatest moment. 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council convened a special session. Not a tribunal this time, but a memorial. Representatives from over 200 species gathered to honor the fallen, to remember the sacrifice that had saved not just the Luminari, but the entire Orion-armed Admiral. Kane stood at the center of the chamber where he had once faced execution. Behind him, a holographic display showed images of the dead. Human faces, Velthary faces, Nixathi energy signatures, all the beings who had given everything so that others might live. 1 month ago, Kane began, his voice carrying across the vast space, I stood in this chamber as a criminal. Humanity had been accused of being too dangerous, too aggressive, too willing to fight. The Galactic Council was prepared to condemn us, to quarantine us, perhaps to destroy us entirely. He paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. Today, I stand here as something else. Not as a criminal, but as a survivor. Not as a threat, but as a friend. And I stand here to honor the people who made this transformation possible. The holographic display shifted to show Admiral Helena Voss, her official portrait projecting larger than life. Admiral Voss commanded the Deathworlder fleet into battle, knowing she would probably not survive. She watched her ships die one by one, and she never wavered. When the moment came to make the final sacrifice, she did not hesitate. She pointed her flagship at the heart of the enemy and gave the order to charge. His voice caught slightly. She was my student once. Decades ago, when she was just a young officer full of questions about what leadership really meant. I told her that a true commander never asks their people to do anything they would not do themselves. She took that lesson to heart. When her crew needed someone to lead them into death, she was the first through the door. The display shifted again, showing Colonel Marcus Webb and the Marines of the boarding parties. Colonel Webb and his teams knew they would not survive the moment they entered the Devourer. The construct was designed to consume any intruder. They went anyway. They fought through horrors that would break most species, and when they reached the core, they discovered that the only way to hurt it was to give their lives. Kane's jaw tightened. 437 Marines entered the Devourer. None of them came out, but because of their sacrifice, the enemy was wounded badly enough for our fleet to finish the job. Every one of them is a hero. Every one of them deserves to be remembered. The display continued, showing face after face, name after name. The crews of the ships that had rammed the enemy, the pilots who had flown suicide missions, the engineers who had stayed behind to keep damaged systems running, the medics who had refused to evacuate while patients remained. Thousands of names, thousands of stories, thousands of people who had chosen death so that strangers might live. When we first received the Luminary distress call, Kane continued, humanity had a choice. We could have ignored it, like so many species had ignored so many calls before. We could have calculated the risks and decided that the cost was too high. We could have stayed safe behind our borders and let the harvesters consume another world. He shook his head. We chose differently. Not because we were certain of victory. Not because we expected reward. We chose to fight because fighting was right. Because somewhere in the universe, innocent people were dying, and we could not live with ourselves if we did nothing. The Luminary representative stepped forward, its silver light pulsing with deep emotion. Admiral Kane, on behalf of the Luminary sovereignty and our 4 billion citizens, we offer our eternal gratitude. Your species has given us something beyond mere survival. You have given us hope. You have shown us that the darkness can be fought, that evil can be defeated, that there are still beings in this universe willing to sacrifice everything for those they have never met. The representative's light intensified. From this day forward, the Luminary calendar will mark time from the Battle of the Devourer. Your fallen will be honored at our temples for as long as our species exists, and every Luminary child will learn the Na. Me of the species that saved us. They will learn about humans, about Earth, about the Deathworlders who became fire to light our way through the darkness. Similar declarations came from other representatives. The Velthari announced the construction of a massive memorial station to be built at the site of the battle, dedicated to all who had fallen. The Nixathi pledged their support for any future conflict humanity faced. Even species that had once feared humanity now spoke of alliance and partnership, waited until the declarations had finished. Then it spoke, its ancient voice carrying weight that silenced the chamber. This council has existed for 11,000 years. In that time, we have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. We have seen species evolve, expand, and extinguish themselves. We have moderated conflicts that spanned centuries and shaped the destiny of millions of worlds. The entity's form shifted, becoming somehow more present, more focused. In all that time, we have never witnessed anything like what humanity has shown us. You are young. By galactic standards, you are barely born. Your technology is primitive. Your numbers are small. Your world is, by any objective measure, one of the most dangerous and hostile environments in known space. The Valdrix paused. And yet you have done what elder species could not. You have united the galaxy, not through conquest or manipulation, but through example. You have reminded us what we had forgotten, that there are things worth dying for. That courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. That the measure of a species is not what it takes, but what it gives. The chamber was utterly silent. From this day forward, humanity is not merely a member of the Galactic Council. You are something more. You are our conscience, our reminder, our hope that no matter how dark the universe becomes, there will always be those willing to light the way. Admiral Kane bowed his head. Overwhelmed by emotion he had been suppressing for weeks. We did not seek glory, he said finally. We did not seek recognition. We simply did what any species should do when innocents are in danger. He raised his eyes to meet the Valdrix's ancient gaze. And we will continue to do so. Whenever someone sends a distress call, whenever darkness threatens the light, whenever the universe needs defenders, humanity will answer. That is our promise. That is our purpose. That is who we are. 1 year later, in orbit around Luminary Prime, the memorial station, known as the Burning Light, stands eternal watch. It is the largest structure ever built by cooperative galactic effort, visible from the planet's surface as a brilliant star that never sets. Inside the station, the names of the fallen are inscribed on walls that stretch for kilometers. Human names and alien names, side by side, unified in sacrifice. At the center of the memorial, a single flame burns. It is not powered by fuel or technology. It is a gift from the Nixafi, a fragment of living energy that will never extinguish, that will burn for as long as the universe exists. Admiral Victor Kane stands before the flame, alone for the first time in months. His uniform is crisp, his posture perfect, but his eyes are heavy with the weight of everything he has witnessed. He speaks to the flame as if it can hear him. Perhaps it can. Helena, Marcus, all of you. I hope you can see what you built. I hope you know that your sacrifice meant something. The flame flickers, almost like a response. The galaxy has changed because of you. Species that never spoke now work together. Civilizations that feared each other now call themselves allies. And Earth, Earth has become something I never imagined. Not a threat, not a danger. A beacon. He takes a deep breath. We will never forget you. Every child born on Earth will learn your names. Every ship that launches from our system will carry your memory. And every time someone sends a distress call into the void, humanity will answer. Just like you did. Just like we always will. He straightens his uniform one final time. Rest now. You have earned it. The watch is ours. He turns and walks away from the flame, toward the observation window where a dozen species wait to discuss the future of the galaxy. They have saved together. Behind him, the eternal fire continues to burn. A reminder, a promise, warning to any who would threaten the innocent. Humanity is watching. And humanity always answers.